Today is October 7th. Today we will have an MLB playoff bonanza as we'll take a look at the divisional round matchups and use some simulations to analyze the divisional round of the 2021 MLB playoffs. Over the previous 2 days of action, the Red Sox and the Dodgers booked their trip to the divisional round. Per the simulations, Boston had a 63% chance to beat New York, and Los Angeles had a nearly 80% chance to beat the Cardinals. This moves us to the LDS matchups with the wildcard winners, Boston and Los Angeles, taking on Tampa Bay and San Francisco, respectively. In the AL, Houston will play host to the Chicago White Sox, while the Milwaukee Brewers will have the upper seed on the Atlanta Braves. Through the simulations, the ALCS would feature Tampa Bay and Houston for the second year in a row, and the NLCS would see the Dodgers play underdog to the Atlanta Braves. To fully understand how to interpret this, we need to break down the methodology of these simulations. It is centered around the division series, which vary in length depending on the set of opponents. From those season series, we'll take a look at the average runs scored by each team at each location and the standard deviation of those same data points. These two values are then used in a formula that gives us a minimum and maximum value that form a range in which there's a 95% chance that the number of runs each team will score will be in that range. In short, we have a set of possible outcomes for each team based on the location of the game. Now for the simulations and how this provides win probabilities. Each game of the series is calculated by taking a random value in the range of each of the two teams, and then the outcomes are compared. This is simulated 10,000 times for each game, and then the sum of the number of games each team won becomes the win probability for that given game. This is done for each team in the series by location. Then the average of the win totals by the game is then divided by 10,000 simulations per game to get the overall win probability for the series. The win probability for any one game is often quite disparate, but over the course of the series, the probability becomes closer. For instance, the White Sox are heavy underdogs in the simulation with just a 27% win probability against the Houston Astros. Depending on the location, it's incredibly drastic. In the games against Houston, they are given only a 2.1% chance of beating the Astros, given they lost 4 matchups on the road versus the Astros by an average of nearly 5 runs. The simulator, therefore, does not like their odds in the playoffs. However, they did take 2 of 3 at home by an average of just over 2 runs, which makes their average win probability for the games in Chicago almost 65%. And that brings their overall win probability for the series to a hair over 27%, as I previously mentioned. The first matchup of the divisional series round got underway earlier today as the Astros play host to the Chicago White Sox. As mentioned before, the model heavily favors Houston, giving them a 73% chance to take that series. During the regular season series, the 7 games were split, 4 in Houston and 3 in Chicago. Houston won all 4 games at home, and the White Sox took 2 of 3 in Chicago, as previously mentioned. Their only postseason matchup was the 2005 World Series, where the White Sox swept the Astros. This is the first time in the modern era since 1969 where a World Series rematch has taken place in a divisional or championship series instead of the World Series. Now let's go back to the main board and take a look at the second AL matchup, the Tampa Bay Rays and the Boston Red Sox. The model gives Tampa Bay a nearly 60% chance to defeat this familiar opponent and advance to their second consecutive ALCS. The Rays and Red Sox are AL East rivals and played each other 19 times during the regular season. 9 games took place at Fenway and 10 took place at the Trop. At Fenway, the series was pretty even, with Boston taking 5 of 9 on their home field and Tampa Bay taking the other 4. In Tampa, it was a different story, with Tampa winning 70% of those matchups this season. The Rays and Red Sox have met twice before in the postseason, in the 2008 and 2013 ALCS, which they split, with the Rays winning in 2008 and the Sox winning in 2013. Now moving back and to look at the Milwaukee versus Atlanta series, which will begin in second round action tomorrow. The model favors the Braves by a similar margin that it favored the Rays, 60-40 in favor of Atlanta. The two teams faced off 6 times this season, with each team hosting half. They also split the series, with each team taking 1 at home and 2 on the road. The margin of victory was quite different, though. The Brewers won their games by an average of 2 runs, while the Braves won theirs by an average of almost 5. This is the first ever matchup between these two teams in the playoffs, though the Braves have 26 playoff appearances compared to the Brewers' just 7. Returning once more to the big board, we'll take a look at the matchup between the 107-win Giants and the 106-win Los Angeles Dodgers, the latter of whom is coming off a walk-off wildcard win versus St. Louis Cardinals just last night. The model gives the Dodgers a 61% chance to advance despite being the lower seed. Once again, two division rivals are facing off who also played 19 games against one another in the regular season, 9 in San Fran and 10 in LA. Each team was outperformed at home field, with the Dodgers taking 5 of 9 in San Francisco and the Giants taking 6 of 10 in Los Angeles. Why are the Dodgers favored? Their plus 14 run differential versus the Giants in San Francisco, where games 1, 2, and 5 are taking place. Like the other NLDS matchups, this is the first ever playoff meeting between these two NL West squads. Continue to tune in for analysis and forecasting throughout the MLB playoffs with Dean's Data Depot on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. I'm Jeffrey Dean, and this has been the Dean's Data Depot.